Hello and welcome. My name is Derek Schreiner. Today we're going to be doing a reveal of my gamebook, Operation CanCon, the Canadian 90s Music Shopping Gamebook. This isn't a how to play video or a deep dive, but it's a reveal, a little bit like an unboxing, but without the box. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we have here is the front cover with the title, Operation CanCon, and the subtitle, Canadian 90s Music Shopping Gamebook by Derek Schreiner. That's me. Now, this is the second in a trilogy of Operation CanCon books. Each of the three books can stand on its own. You can read them individually if you'd like. Each deals with usually a specific period of time. For example, the first one focuses on the decade of the 1980s. This second one deals with the 1990s. The third one deals with classic Canadiana, which is pre-1980s. Now, you can read them individually, or if you read them in order, they tell an overarching story, but it's not necessary to the game. Now, you may find that there is this stripe across the front that says not for resale in gray. Not to worry, if you ever decide to purchase the book, that won't appear there. It's just there because this is an advanced copy, an author's proof. And that's what we'll be looking through here today. Now, in case you're concerned with dimensions, in terms of metric dimensions, it's about 14 centimeters wide by 22 centimeters high. In inches, that's 5.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches high. In terms of pages, this installment is 242 pages, but in terms of its Choose Your Own Adventure section, where you play the main gamebook, there are 102 sections, and we'll talk a little bit more about pages to sections shortly. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the spine, which has the title Operation CanCon by Derek Schreiner. In this printing, it just says Operation CanCon, but in later printings, you will find that they say Operation CanCon 90s. So the first one will say 80s, the second will say 90s, and the third one will say classics. Otherwise, identical. Now, in terms of the back, you have all the usual stuff. You've got the Lockdown Ludonot logo, but everything else, these blurbs here, I'll just read them to you. It's time to take shopping local to the next level. Welcome back to the 90s. Canada's music scene is rocking, and the store shelves are packed with winners, if you're ready to roll. In Operation CanCon, you're not just flipping through dusty bins, you're chasing priceless cultural artifacts. As a lone collector on a mission, your goal is to target a checklist of tracks scattered in iconic Toronto shops. Part interactive fiction, part solo roll and write game, every visit is a gamble, whether for 10 minutes or a campaign. All you need to play is 3 six-sided dice and something to write with. Operation CanCon is your passport to an era of gone but unforgettable Canadian content. The music that inspired a generation is ready to rise again, but it needs you to bring the decade back to life. Fully steeped in nostalgia, this standalone sequel to the 80s original lets you relive a time when finding the right album seemed like fate. Again, I'm really happy with this design. I think it turned out really sharp, but it did show me something sort of interesting that I hadn't seen on other books that I've printed. When this one was printed, I noticed that it came from a place in Alberta, whereas the others came from printing presses in Ontario. And I noticed that the black in the background looked darker than the other copies did, and you can't really see the image behind it as much. You mostly see the foreground darkness. This may look different for you, so you may see more of the background image or more of the dark sort of overlay, depending on various printing conditions, I suppose. But in the background, it's meant to be a picture of the classic Sam the Record Man neon spinning vinyl signs. What do you think? Do you like it when it's darker, or do you prefer it when you can see more of the background image showing through? Let me know. And if you're interested in hearing anything more about this book, whether it's the design or whether it's the creation of the book, the process of laying it out, publishing it, anything at all. I've even mentioned before scheduling my time, because that's actually something a couple of people have asked me about. Please let me know. Just drop me a comment, and I'll be sure to get back to you, either respond or maybe even make a video. Okay, let's take a look inside. So the first thing we have when we open it up is the frontispiece and the credits and the contents. Now, in many ways, this will seem very similar to other books in the CanCon series, the Operation CanCon series, because most of it will be similar. Now, even though we see a lot of the same things, intro, overview, Operation CanCon, interlude, epilogue, glossary, appendices, checklists, scavenger hunt, deeds, and about the author, even where there's overlap, there are some things that have changed. But even in the sections that are the same, there are different examples that are specific to that particular era, to that particular narrative in that book. Other things are similar. If you learn the system in one book, you will understand it for all of the books. But what changes is the section marked Operation CanCon, which is those 102 sections of Choose Your Own Adventure story. Those are completely unique to each book. The story, the background, the process that you go through, the stores that you visit, the songs that you're tracking, all of those things are unique to each book. However, the gameplay of the basic minigame sweep is the same in all three books. As I said, if you understand it in one, you will understand it in others. But I'm not sure which book people will buy, so each of the books stands alone and has a complete set of rules that match each other. Okay, now in terms of going through this, let's just page through a little bit. We have an introduction, we have an overview where we describe the general rules of the game and its overall progress. Then we've got more detailed rules for the sweep game. Now it may look like it's complex because there's 8 pages devoted to the rules, but they're broken down into very, very small little digestible bits. And once you put them all together, I think you'll find that the game is actually very, very simple and straightforward. And that's described in a different video on the site on lockdownloudnot.com. But this general area will tell you the components, general description of play, the step-by-step rules that you need to go through, an example of play, as well as a diagram showing you what a sheet looks like filled in, one of the checklists. And then we get to the game itself. Similarly with the first book and the third book, you start at the beginning and you have about 10 sections where you just get background story, technically 11 sections. And it gives you sort of the motivation, the background for why you are doing what you're doing in the narrative. And that gives you an excuse to play the game, which begins proper at section 11. So if you just wanted to play the game directly, you could either play it on a separate sheet of paper once you understand the rules, or you could jump straight to section 11 to just start playing if you're not interested in the story itself. And then from 11, you can play the game. And it's the kind of game, like I said, where there is a choose your own adventure element. So some sections may tell you go to some other section number, or some sections may say, if you do the first thing, go to one page. If you do the other thing, go to a different page. Now this brings up a point that I made earlier, which was in relation to page numbers versus section numbers. You'll notice that the book doesn't have page numbers, and that's because it's sometimes confusing in game books, as you may know from other game books. If something tells you go to section 50, sometimes it may be confusing. Does it mean section 50, or did they mean 50 as in the page number? So in order to keep it sort of, as understandable as possible, it just refers to section numbers, which are the only things that are numbered, and pages are not. Because most of the book is taken up by sections, not by pages. Like I said, there's only something like 8 pages that are devoted to the basic rules. Now, as with the other books in the series, they also have additional rules. Once you finish through the game, you can play multiple games. In fact, to finish a campaign, you'll probably have to play 7 or 8 games. And in between those games, you can earn experience that help you to sort of purchase rewards. And that's what you'll learn about in the interlude section, campaign considerations. You'll learn about the concept of rogue points, which is the experience that you earn, and can karma, which is the things that you can buy, the sort of rewards that will help you in future games. Or, if you like, you can even purchase the ability to make the game more difficult, because some people may want more of a challenge, not to make the game easier. There's also an epilogue section, which has advanced variations, or some people call it New Game Plus. That means you finished a complete campaign, and maybe you want to play the game again, but allows you to change the rules. And in fact, it changes it into an almost different type of game. There's lots of information about that. There's also a glossary. The glossary is mostly common between the 3 books. I would say at least 95% of the terms are the same. If you understand what something means in one book, you'll understand what it means in others, although there are a few things that are specific to individual books, but the glossary describes those. There are also appendices, which have their own little section of contents, and the appendices in each book are different as well, even though they look similar. For example, they each have store grids, checklists, some default, some blank, some on single pages, some on double pages, and a triple constraint grid. The triple constraint grid is the same in all 3 books. Now, as I always say with these game books, personally, if it was me and I had purchased the book, I wouldn't want to write in it, but that's entirely up to you. But if you'd like, and you don't want to write in the book and you want printable sheets, or maybe, like me, your eyes are getting old and you have trouble seeing fine print, maybe you'd like to print stuff out on a bigger sheet. The footnote here at the bottom of the appendices tells you can go to lockdownludnot.com and you can download free PDFs to print out on your own. But I'll show you what those are here. They include a store grid, and these stores are unique to this particular book. Every installment has a different group of 8 stores, and these in most cases are actual real world stores that existed, and almost all of them don't exist anymore. Then there are checklists filled with artists and songs. Now, I've filled out the default with my favorites, but they may not be your favorites, or maybe you'll go through them and you'll discover some new favorites. But if you find that you'd like to fill in your own, if you leaf over, you'll find a blank page where you can fill in your own favorite artists, songs, albums, what have you. Now, if you've, felt similarly to me that your eyes can't see anything that small, unfortunately, it's just the nature of the book size that if you want to fit, in this case, 56 artists and their songs into a single page, by necessity, it has to be quite small. So what I've done is I've also included what I call double page versions, and that forces you to turn the book sideways, but it also has the advantage of dividing the checklist across 2 pages and thus making the text double the size, so hopefully easier for you to read. It's entirely your choice. There's also blanks that are sideways and the triple constraint grid. The checklisted artists and songs are broken out even larger in the section that follows, and these are specific to the 90s, not the 80s or the classics. Some more detail there. There's also a Can Service scavenger hunt, which is the Canadian version of fan service, and these include a lot of Easter eggs that are specific to Canada, the 90s, other aspects of the story, and just, if you read through it and you find these elements, check them off and see if you can find them all. These are unique to this book as well. There's no overlap between what's in the 80s book, the 90s book, or the classic book, the 3rd one. And overleaf, there are deeds, which are sort of like trophies or achievements. These are common to all the books because they involve more mechanical things involving the gameplay as opposed to the story. So have you done certain things like if you roll a 2, then you get the raccoon eyes deed, for example. Then there's an about the author, and that's it for the internal contents. Now, where can you go for more information on this game book? You can go to lockdownludnot.com, which I mentioned before, And that's useful because that's where you'll probably get the most information. You'll get related playlists, you'll get sheets that you can print out, you'll get blank sheets that you can fill out with your own custom stuff. You can get a sampler. The 80s book has a sampler. It's the first one in the series, and basically you will be able to play the full version of the mini game there, but not the story or the advanced games. But if you get a taste for that mini game and you like it, you are likely to appreciate the other ones as well. Because once you learn that mini game, it will apply to all 3 books, not just the 80s book. So download the 80s sampler, the first in the series, and see what you think of that. Also those sheets, also the information, also playlists. You could go to boardgamegeek.com and search for Operation CanCon or my name, and you should find an entry there for each of the books. And in their file sections, you can find the sheets and you can find samplers in the 80s version. You may also find these videos appearing there as well. You can go to Amazon, which allows you to preview the covers, about 10% of the book, and some information that they kind of automatically choose, like the back cover or about the author, that kind of thing. You can find information there as well. Now, in terms of purchasing, if you decide you want to buy, if this appeals to you, the price varies by region, by exchange rate, but the paperback version is available on Amazon right now. Other formats, other platforms, I will update the site, lockdownloudnot.com, with information as soon as those become available. But for now, you can find the paperback version of all 3 books in the series on Amazon. So that's Operation CanCon, the Canadian 90s Music Shopping Gamebook. It's a dark cover. I really like it, but it's appropriate. It's kind of a dark story as well. You know, the 90s was a bit of a dark time, and plus it's the second book in a trilogy. And as we know from series, the second installments are kind of the nadir of the hero's journey. So it's sort of a dark place before you come back up in the third. But if it sounds like something that appeals to you or something that might be of interest to someone you know, please feel free to share. If the video has been helpful to you, please like it, please share it, please feel free to leave a comment. If you have anything you'd like to say or any questions you'd like to ask, I would love to get back to you with a response. And, you know, subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date on all the latest news about this game book or any of the others that I publish. But until then, that's it for now. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.